All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company. Today's class, Produce Spotlight, our Tuesday special. And of course, we are in the thick of summer, which is my favorite season, but it is a bit hot. We want some maybe inspirational desserts that are nourishing, but also maybe a little bit cooling as well. So today's class topic, we're going to talk about summer produce desserts with an emphasis on raspberries. Now, it is technically National Mango Day. Missed opportunity when I picked raspberries for today, but mangoes would be absolutely delicious for a summertime dessert as well. Alrighty, so let's just dive in. Our recipe is super easy today, so we're going to save that for the end. But let's just talk about some facts about raspberries, which are my personal favorite fruit. I love them. Ooh, not my day. All right, so raspberries, as you probably know, are small, sweet, but also slightly tart fruits. Red raspberries that you can see in this picture here are native to Europe and Northern Asia, but here in the United States, we predominantly grow most of our raspberry crop in California, Washington, and Oregon. Not to say that we can't grow them here on this side of the country, it's just the mass quantity are going to be grown over there, especially with seasonality and things. Raspberries can come in many, many different colors. Red, which you're often familiar with seeing, blush, deep black color, purple, gold, or yellow. We've carried various varieties, especially like this golden yellow color I've seen in our store. So just keep an eye out. They're going to have slightly different flavor profiles, but they're all uniquely delicious. And of course, we want, when we're shopping for fresh raspberries, we want to look for plump, firm, and fragrant berries. Now, how should we handle raspberries? Now, I see somebody, I think in the Q&A wrote they want to learn about how to, keep them fresh. They are a delicate fruit, and that's really something that we're not going to be able to change. There are some, people out there that will say there's different ways. Find what works for you, but this is the recommendation I've seen and I've heard from berry producers. Raspberries, again, super delicate and they take on water really quickly, which is why they get moldy really quickly, get smushed really quickly. So they're prone to being soggy. And that's just a fact of life. One thing I will do, so you'll see people recommend storing them in a different container, what have you. I honestly, the packages that they come in are ideal for storing them. They have, air holes so that they can breathe. I do typically store, kind of like we talked about with our lettuces, I'll put like a paper towel in there to just absorb any excess moisture that can make the item go bad quicker. So I typically put a paper towel in there. Sometimes I'll store it upside down, but it really doesn't matter. And it'll start to absorb, some of the excess. And I change that out so you don't have that wet paper towel sitting on the fresh berries. Carefully inspect any containers for mold, of course, before you purchase them, because if there's mold on one piece, there's going to be mold on all of the raspberries, even if you can't quite see it yet. Now, the recommendation, again, you'll see people who rinse their raspberries when they first buy them, and they seem to be okay. But the real recommendation is to rinse right before consuming them. And depending on the type of tap water you have or whatever water you're using, the actual force of that tap water can be way too forceful and can smush them because, again, they're so, so delicate. So, the recommendation and how I'm going to rinse mine today is actually you take a little bowl or whatever size bowl you need, how many raspberries you need, and then a fine mesh strainer. I love these. We sell them in our kitchen aisle. And then you're going to dip with the raspberries in there into the bowl. And then I kind of just swoosh the raspberries around until they get kind of coated with the water and kind of just drip them out. Pat them dry with a paper towel or a tea towel. I will say the only tea towel I have in my kitchen today is white, so I'm not going to be using that. This is definitely an instance for a single use or a really easy clean kitchen towel. So that's the recommendation on how to rinse them as well. So many different raspberry items in our stores. I updated this because we have different ones now. I am a real big fan of our Nature's Promise fruit spreads, what have you. That wild blueberry one was terrific. The red raspberry is also delicious. We have a raspberry lemon ginger kombucha, raspberry vinaigrette, which is also super simple to make on your own, but our bottled version is very good too. We do have a raspberry lime seltzer, frozen raspberries, which I love for different uses, whether it be smoothies or making a homemade vinaigrette. I actually like using the frozen instead. And this, I don't know if this is new. It's definitely not the most nutritious item. It does have sugar, but it is a summer raspberry sorbetto, so an Italian style sorbet. And I don't know, it just sounds so delicious. The first ingredient is water, the second ingredient are raspberries. So I think I might be picking that up as a nice cool down treat as well. For fresh or frozen whole raspberries, nutrition, they are just a nutrition powerhouse. One cup has only 64 calories, only 14 grams of carbs, 8 of which are fiber. So they are such a fiber-packed fruit. Also, one of the reasons they're one of my favorites, other than the fact they taste amazing, they are just so full of fiber and they only have 5 grams of sugar. So if you're somebody who watches their blood sugar or is looking to get more fiber in their diet, raspberries, whether fresh or frozen, are just such an amazing way to have a blood sugar friendly, high fiber fruit. Raspberries, additionally, are super packed with many different antioxidants, particularly what we call polyphenols, and specifically types of flavonoids, the quercetin and agalic acid. These are thought to play a role in heart health, disease prevention when it comes to heart disease, obesity, age-related decline. Again, they're just a super fruit in that way. They do contain resveratrol. So if you are familiar, like you'll hear about red wine and those things having resveratrol, which is a potent antioxidant as well. But we also know alcohol is a carcinogen, so we have to weigh the pros and cons of consuming things. Raspberries, while not quite as high as those grapes that produce wine, because that skin is going to be where a lot of that resveratrol is, raspberries and other berries will also have it too. They're also an excellent source of vitamin C at 28% of our daily value in that cup. And not everybody looks at glycemic index, and it's not a perfect science, but glycemic index and glycemic load kind of show you, in theory, in a perfect, lab setting, what this would do to someone's blood sugar. So raspberries are very low on the glycemic index, meaning they're going to be very good for blood sugar control. And this is again due to the fiber and some of those antioxidants and just that ratio. They're low in carbs, a lot of it's fiber, not too much sugar. So again, a really great fruit to enjoy if you watch your blood sugar. Ways to use raspberries, so many options. I think they're just the perfect fruit. I ate breakfast kind of late today. I had oat bran with raspberries on top, which is a super high fiber meal. But you can top your oatmeal with raspberries. You can mix it into pancake batter, waffles, put it on top of other types of cereal, sweeten up smoothies and parfaits. Fresh or frozen work great here. Muffins, scones, quick breads. I've put raspberries in cookies. They pair quite nicely with white chocolate, which is also one of my favorites. I think Shayna talked a bit about using frozen or fresh berries in baked goods in one of our classes, but if you're baking with frozen berries, the recommendation is to keep them frozen until you're putting them in the batter, because otherwise they're going to bleed a lot, which is okay, but not necessarily the most beautiful, look. You can make preserves, which I'll share a recipe, add a flair to lemonade or iced tea, especially using the frozen berries. They also freeze. If you purchase them fresh, they freeze really well as well. I honestly, sometimes I'll just throw the whole container in the freezer and then give them a rinse once they defrost or when I'm ready to use them. My favorite flavor, trifecta, and there's a lot of products you'll see that kind of have this medley, but raspberry with hibiscus and rose. It is just so amazing. Again, it's one of my favorite flavor combinations. And making, again, a raspberry vinaigrette, very simple as well. Now, this is something, I think I shared this, I talked about raspberries years and years ago, but growing up, and I still kind of like it, blue raspberry. If you've ever seen like blue raspberry flavored lollipops and different things, like what technically is that supposed to be? Of course, it's not a real variety. There are like purpley darker color raspberries, but nothing that's really blue. There are very few natural blue things like that in nature. So the thought and kind of some food history behind it is that it was thought to have originated to create a different color for ice pops and other treats that are colored because there were a lot of other red foods already. Cherry flavored, strawberry, watermelon, cranberry. We had a lot of red going on. So somebody said, well, why don't we just make raspberries blue? I think that's far-fetched, but I guess not a bad reason to come up with a different color scheme. So the flavor, there is a variety of raspberries called black cap raspberry, which actually grow wild around here. So they have a very unique flavor. I love the flavor of blue raspberry, so I'm assuming I'd love black cap raspberries. However, in terms of food science, they use pineapple, banana, and cherry esters to create the flavor, which I find wild because I really don't like pineapple or banana. But I guess when it's combined with cherry, it's one of my favorite flavors. So I just thought that was kind of a little fun fact to share. There aren't as many recipes as I thought there would be in savory. There are enough. If you search raspberry, you'll see a bunch of different things. Not all of them are going to be incredibly nutritious. Some of them are going to be more treat or dessert inspired, which I think it's still a great opportunity to enjoy your treats, but also have a super high fiber fruit, which is going to balance all of that. So the three recipes I pulled, but there are a bunch more. This one I pulled, so this is an overnight oats with chia berry jam. I've made this in class a couple times, the chia berry jam. Phenomenal. So I think the recipe, you use 2 cups of fresh or frozen berries. It could be strawberries, blueberries, a medley. It could be raspberries. Um, so I think it's 2 cups of the raspberries. I want to say however much sweetener you want, if any, because you really don't need it. And I think 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. Could be a different ratio, but it thickens up and it's spreadable and amazing. And other than that wild blueberry preserves, I really typically make this when I've got a bunch of frozen berries that I want to kind of use up. So that is a phenomenal food to try. Then we have a mixed berry parfait here. Again, just an easy way to use the fruits of the season. Raspberries are so perfect right now. So, your favorite type of yogurt, especially if you buy the ingredients for today's recipe, just buy a bag of granola and you can also make parfaits too. And then this raspberry lemonade, again, it still has like a cup of sugar in it for the whole batch. But this just it's almost like a variation of like a pink lemonade, which I think I'm going to make this too, at least sometime this summer. So just three of the many recipes we offer that have raspberries. Okay, so today's recipe, I've kind of already done a little bit of the pre-work here, but I will show you. These are grilled peaches with yogurt and raspberries. I'm kind of shocked it only earns one guiding star. It's two different fruits and a yogurt, probably because there is some honey, which, to be frank, I think you could probably leave out. All right, recipe is super, super simple. So you're going to take your peaches. It could be white, it could be yellow. I think you could also do nectarines. You could make this with pears. I feel like you could do apples, really, whatever you want to roast. I think right now peaches are coming in season. They are nice and perfect. There was a bag of peaches, our Giant brand. They were perfectly ripe. It was just everything kind of fell into place. A little bit of honey. I just kind of drizzled. I'll show you. Our peaches. So I did already grill these. I have a grill top that I put on my stove, but if you're having a summer cookout, you're grilling outside already, it really would not take much effort to put these right on the grill. All you're going to do is cut the peaches in half, take out that pit, which mine were so ripe, they kind of just fell right out. Cut them in half, drizzle a little bit of honey on each of the halves. Again, probably optional if you don't want to add more added sugar. I think it does kind of add a nice caramelization, which the fruit's going to provide too, but I don't know, a little bit of honey, I don't think is a big problem. So you're going to grill them. The recipe says cook 2 to 3 minutes per side, or not per side, cook 2 to 3 minutes until grill marks appear. On my stovetop one, it definitely took longer than that. I didn't want to cook them too long, but definitely enough for, kind of want to pick one up and show you. Uh, they've been sitting on my counter for a little bit, but grill marks definitely appeared after like 4 or 5 minutes. So definitely watch them. Then I transfer them off of the grill, our grill pan, and all we're gonna do is top them with a dollop of yogurt and some raspberries. I do like this idea. So if you've heard Shayna and I talk about like hot honey, if you want to twist, and I think this would be really nice for this, in the honey, instead of just using regular honey, you could either use a hot honey or if you have regular honey, put a little bit in a small bowl, mix in a little cayenne pepper, and you kind of make your own hot honey. I think that juxtaposition of the spicy, but not too spicy, with the hyper sweetness of the peaches, the honey itself, and the raspberries would be a nice combination. You have the yogurt, which can help kind of calm any of that heat as well. I think that would be a kind of fun twist on it too. Okay. Before we wrap up, and I'll show you the full recipe, do join us on Friday for Baked Beans Month. I'm very excited to talk about baked beans at 9 in the morning on Friday. And then our next produce spotlight, Shayna will be talking about plums, so another stone fruit you can talk about there. So make sure you register for those. But do let me show you. So they're so cute. Look at them. Okay. So I am also going to show you different varieties of raspberries. Of course, you can purchase, I've got the paper towel in there, because one of them was a little soft. But they're just so, they're so beautiful. And I'm wearing a raspberry shirt. I have a shirt for basically every fruit or vegetable, so this is not a shock. But I love raspberries. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some of these, but I do also want to show you these. Now, I'm going to tell you this is definitely a splurge item, which seems funny for a fruit. But if you ever come across the Driscoll's variety that are called sweetest batch, they are worth they are worth the price. I was at an event at a store opening in Jenkintown months and months ago, and they were sampling the sweetest batch. It's hard to say fast. Blackberries. People kept coming up and sampling them because they were so amazing. And that just made me feel good that people, they really loved a fruit. So that was really fun. These are no exception. They are amazing. This is what I put on my oatmeal this morning. But like, look, got the little stem. So cute. But yes, these were absolutely phenomenal. So you're looking for a little splurge. Honestly, they weren't that much more expensive than the other raspberries, so it's not a huge splurge, especially right now while they're so in season. So what we're gonna do, I need to be careful. I have my bowl of water with my colander. I love, again, if you don't have these fine mesh strainers, these are amazing for so many different things, not just for rinsing foods like this, but I also, like, let's say you want to sprinkle some powdered sugar on something, put a little powdered sugar in here. This works perfectly. But I have many sizes of them because you can use them for so many things. All right, I'm going to put a couple of raspberries, just some of the regular and some of the sweetest batch. The sweetest batch ones, they are really a really nice texture. They're not mushy at all. And they're like a little bit bigger, they seem. All right, get all of them in there. So I do kind of, hopefully I can show you. They're in there in the water, and I'm just gonna kind of smush them around. Not smush, that's the wrong word. I keep saying it though. All right, just gonna dip them so each of them are covered. Now, I wouldn't do something like a vinegar rinse or anything. Again, these are so delicate. Something like a blueberry or even a blackberry probably could hold up to something like a vinegar rinse if you really want to do it. Raspberries, again, I don't think they could tolerate it. Okay, it's a good rinse. And there's like little stuff in the water, so it definitely worked. Some of it's just little seed particles, but it definitely helped. All right, let me grab a paper towel. So I do want to kind of just dab them off a little on the bottom and on the top. Look how cute they are. They're so good. Okay, so what we're going to do, I am a big Greek yogurt fan. That's typically the only type of yogurt I purchase. However, I thought for this, a regular yogurt would make more sense. So I actually am just doing our non-fat vanilla, which does have a little bit of added sugar, but I'm not going to do 3/4 of a cup, which is a serving. That is 10 grams of added sugar, which is a little over 2 teaspoons. So really not that much. Like, again, thinking about in the grand scheme, I'm really just going to do a dollop. So for a full serving, it's not going to be 3/4 of a cup. All right. A little bit on there. I'm so excited. It's gonna be a nice little treat. This would be a great summer dessert. I don't think anybody would turn this away. So cute. Okay, and then this is not going to be beautiful. Shane would be so unimpressed. All right, that looks good. Okay, beautiful. Well, that not pretty. I am not the best at plating things. I won't lie, but I'm sure it's going to taste amazing. Have the peaches be nice and warm. Maybe a little honey if you like. The dollop of the yogurt. Those fresh raspberries. Give the sweetest batch a try. If you already love raspberries and you just want to elevate them, that is definitely the way to go. I'm going to take a photo of these before I dive in, but I am very excited to give them a try. I would probably do one full peach per person, and then, however many raspberries they want to sprinkle on top. I also think some cinnamon on top would be very nice, or you could do the cayenne pepper as well. But I want to thank you so much for joining me today and learning all about raspberries, my personal favorite fruit. And I hope you join us next time. Thank you and take care.